So today, we're taking a look at my League starter build, the Whirl-Winions Tactician. I know, the name's a bit silly, but hear me out, it's freaking awesome.
You can see the riding on the pavement. Young kids that growing up in basements. Online, a whole new generation. I'ma make mine, so you better go take it. Always they need a new replacement. Decentralized, can't contain it. We're changing lives, yeah, upgrading. Call it suicide of the older generation. What keeps you up at night, yeah? Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. Keeps you up at night, yeah. Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough.
Pretty savage, right? At its core, the build is very straightforward. We throw out some whirlwinds, we toss some twisters, while our trusted companions charge rounds, leaving their trails of fire and cold and lightning all around the place. And these trails turn our whirlwinds and twisters into elemental whirlwinds and twisters that give it even more damage. It's pretty simple to play, it's effective, and it's surprisingly easy to put together. So, how our build actually works. Thanks to Ascendancy, the Tactician, we pin enemies when we deal projectile damage. And using the Spirit Gem Combat Frenzy, we gain frenzy charges when we pin enemies. These frenzy charges are the key to our build, as they unlock the full potential of our whirlwind lance. With a charge, we can throw out whirlwinds at higher stages, and each stage increases its collapse damage, dealing a massive 190% more damage per stage when we walk into it. Plus, throwing twisters into the whirlwind amplifies their damage by 80% more per stage, and even spawns additional twisters for even more awesomeness. Thanks to our companions, when they turn our whirlwinds elemental, it allows us to gain 50% of that damage as elemental damage as well. Also, thanks to Ascendancy, when we pin enemies, they cannot act, and our whirlwinds blind and slow enemies too, adding to our survivability to this build. So now, let's talk about the pros and cons of this build. We're going to start with the pros. First up, it has good map clearance speed. This build is tackling tier 15 Waystones without too much trouble at all. It also has room for improvement, potential to grow, because my gear is pretty bad and I'm level 87, so there is some level ups still to do, and lots of gear to get and replace and upgrade. So far, the build is relatively cheap. I currently have turbo gear, as I said before, though you could argue I did get a perfect ruler's arm, which usually costs an armor like, but it did drop in one of my maps. But honestly, you'd be fine without it, just means your whirlwinds will just become a little bit smaller. It also has straightforward gameplay loop. The rotation is simple, you start with a whirlwind, and then you throw 3 to 5 twisters, and then you go straight back to whirlwind. Although, Stormlands can come in handy for tougher enemies and bosses as well. And the crazy thing is, this build has flexible damage types. This build will be dealing lots of physical damage, but you can easily switch between elements by changing your companions. By changing your trails, you can choose between fire, cold and lightning. It adds a lot of versatility, and it has good survivability, mostly. It's got solid defensive layers, pinning your enemies, they can't act, whirlwinds blinds, and slow, plus there's good evasion and a small chance to block. But since it is invasion based, one-shots will happen from time to time, so therefore this could also go in the cons section as well. And finally, our last pro had a good overall level experience. Leveling with the build was pretty enjoyable. It's not brainless, but it wasn't overcomplicated either. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about the cons for this build right now. This build relies heavily on frenzy charge, which can be tricky in certain situations, mainly during boss fights, and especially earlier in the campaign. Lots of parrying during that campaign, while maintaining them during maps is pretty darn easy. And also, this build heavily depends on companions being around at all times. They're crucial for boosting your damage, defenses, attack speed, and providing elemental whirlwinds as well. If they're not there, you'll definitely notice the difference. One of the biggest issues is the crazy amounts of visual clutter this build creates. The massive whirlwinds make it really difficult to see what's happening on the ground, like dangerous enemy effects or mechanics like volatile plants. It can get a bit overwhelming during chaotic fights. Farming for companions can take quite some time. Looking for the right modifiers that you want, basically those trails, those auras, they can take a little bit of time, but I'll show you where you can get some awesome companions during the campaign. And finally, this build has some complexity to it. Heck, I'm still figuring things out and I'm the one who made it. I mean, we're inflicting a ton of elements, then there's interactions between whirlwind, twister and elemental grounds, and we have frenzy charge generation and also some buff shenanigans as well. Even though the gameplay loop is pretty darn simple. Okay, so I'm going to be trying to run through skills as fast as I can without taking up too much of your time. But our main skill is going to be Whirlwind Lance. Whirlwind Lance is going to be supported by Salvo, the most important support, by the way. It's going to allow us to throw 5 whirlwinds, but it does take time to come back, so you can't spam it. That's why we're using Twister as well. Next up is going to be Deliberation. It's just 20% more damage at cost of movement speed. Heft for more maximum physical hit damage. But Whirl-Wind Lance is going to be doing a lot of physical damage, so I kind of like Heft here. Magnified effects and Reach as well for a crazy absurd amounts of area effect. It's kind of the setup I like running on this for right now. As for Twister, I literally got a perfect Jeweler's Orb today, but the supports are going to be running on it is going to be Longshot. You can use Martial Tempo instead of this. Persistence, so our Twisters last longer. It's great in boss battles and also taking things off screen along with Longshot as well. Concentrate effect for more area damage at the cost of a little bit of radius down on your Twister. I think it's still worth it. Now we're also using Splinter here. I kind of like Splinter because the way they've changed armor break. Once we do break an enemy's armor, they're going to take 20% increased physical damage. And then finally I'm using Primal Armament. Now there is some other support gems that I'm thinking about using. Potentially like Impale, maybe Scattershot. I don't really like Scattershot that much. Exploit Weakness, maybe on a Whirl-Wind Lance, or Close Combat on either of these. But this is current setup that I do like running on this build. Now we're also running Stormlance. Now this is only rarely used for really tough rares and bosses. But the support you're going to be using on is Perpetual Charge, so we don't use up our charges as much. We want to use them up in a Whirlwind Lance. Lightning Exposure, so when we do shock an enemy with Stormlance, and we get a Lightning Whirlwind, that Whirlwind is going to do a lot more damage as well. Then we're using Lightning Fusion, just a little bit more lightning damage as well. And then Twofold for a 20% chance when you consume the charge to get that effect doubled. Those are our main skills. As for a companion, I'm using the Rapid Dog. And the reason why I'm using the Rapid Dog is because he uses up a hell of a lot less spirit. And he's also super fast. But the main thing to take away from companions is on your first companion, you want Haste Aura and a Trail. Like Trail of Fire, Trail of Cold, or Trail of Lightning. The other two modifiers are completely up to your preference. Now, as for the overpowered Quadrilla that everyone's using, the main modifiers to get on this dude is going to be extra physical damage aura and whatever trail you want. Preferably Trail of Lightning since we're rocking Herald of Thunder, but you can also get two other modifiers as well. It just takes a lot more time to get the perfect modifiers in my opinion. Now something really important to notice is that when you use Gem Counter Prisons on your companion gems, they actually reduce in reservation, which is pretty nice. It's going to allow us to fit in more auras, but it's not super necessary to be honest. Unless you want to rock two Quadrillas, which might actually be the play. But then for main aura, the most important one is going to be Combat Frenzy. This is going to allow us to get a frenzy charge, so when we pin enemies, it's super important, and pretty much the only most important support we need is Profusion. Gives us a 50% chance to grant additional charge whenever we do gain a charge with Combat Frenzy. Cannibalism and Precision are used later on once we do have our reservations on our companions down. It's just a little bit more support overall. Next up, we're using the Herald of Thunder, and Herald of Thunder is going to provide a lot of damage for us. Since we're going to be shocking enemies with Trails, that's why you want Trails of Lightning. Herald of Thunder is also going to be taking out enemies with Cullen Strike. And once you take out enemies with Cullen Strike, it's going to give us a buff with Innovative, which gives all our attacks 35% of the damage as lightning damage for 5 seconds, which is awesome. And then finally, I'm also using Lightning Penetration just for a little bit more damage on Herald of Thunder. And as for final aura that we can fit in, I'm using Wind Dancer. Wind Dancer to give us a hell of a lot more resistance, and we're up to about 9,000 resistance with 75% evasion. Once we throw our Whirlwind Lance out or consume a Frenzy Charge, we actually get about 11,500 evasion, which is pretty darn decent. So where can you farm the companions? For the Quadrilla, you go to the waypoints, you want to go to Act 3 in either Cruel or Normal, and you want to go to Jungle Ruins. And in the Jungle Ruins, you need to find yourselves that Trouble Camp. So once you find a camp here, you're going to have Gwendolyn Aubrey. You got a checkpoints, and there is going to be Quadrilla around here. That is going to be rare. So basically, if you don't find the right one, you want to respawn at checkpoints. You come back, and you look for this Quadrilla again, which should be around, which has increased area effect and temporal bubble. You want to respawn again, and this companion is going to be a lot easier to farm than the doggo. But you want to be careful because if you do take him out, he's not going to come back until you reset the area. Once you do reset the area, the Quadrilla does come back. So don't be worried if you take him out, you miss out on your opportunity, just reset the area, find the camp again, and try to capture him again. Much easier than the Rapid Dog. So unfortunately, to capture Rapid Dog, you need to go to your waypoints. It's going to be a little bit harder than the Quadrilla, that's for sure, but once you go to Act 1 in either Normal or Cruel, you want to go to the Oglim Farmlands, which doesn't have a waypoint. So we're going to have to go from the Oglim village. We have to make our way back through this door. And once we're here, we're going to have to find ourselves that crop field. So we can either go 50-50, go down or up. You look for this wheat field, this crop fields. You dodge in the way. And once you get here, there should be this crop circle. Once you step inside it, the doggos will start to spawn. But there should be a checkpoint here. And the unfortunate thing is, with the checkpoints, when you walk in to see the doggos here, they should spawn. And you should see that rare dog, which is Volatile Plants. I can't see it. Volatile Plants and Acra. And if we do respawn, unfortunately, the doggos don't come back. So we do need to go back to the door and reset that instance every time you want to farm for this dog, making it a lot more difficult than the Quadrilla. So, but there could be some other options. I'm still testing out some companions, but for right now I do like the doggo since it uses up a lot less spirit and it is super fast. But hey, let me know if there's other companions you think will be awesome in this build. Now, as for gear, I'm not going to get too specific. Basically, all we want is high physical damage, elemental damage to attacks, increased attack speed, and plus all the projectile skills. As much as possible. I've seen spears upwards of 300 to 600 damage, and that's just purely physical. So this spear is really not that great. As for our main armor here, basically our belts, our armor, and our helmet, we just want high evasion, max life, stats or reses. Just as much as possible. But our gloves are going to be a bit different. You want as much elemental damage or physical damage to attacks or attack speed with some reses, but the most important thing is leeching that physical attack damage as mana. Now you can get this on your gloves, you can get it on rings, you can get it on your spear, but I would recommend getting this suffix here. As for boots, you want movement speed, reses, max life, basically. As for rings, kind of like your gloves, you want as much attack damage to attacks while having your reses as well. But this one also has the leech effect, but it is for life, so it's kind of a nice quality of life option here. For the amulet, all you want is plus 2 projectiles while having reses max life. This is really garbage freaking amulet, but it is what it is. We have to use it for right now because I haven't seen a single better one. Then for a buckler, basically you want as much block chance as possible while having super high evasion, while having super high reses as well. As for runes, I'm rocking a chaos res. I'm rocking minions have increased maximum life. Now this is not that great. For our build specifically, I'm also rocking fire res and increased armor and evasion. Basically, you want as much of this as possible, but we do have to rock some fire resistance because our gear is just so bad. I'm also rocking a stun charm because I hate being stunned, and that's pretty much our whole gear. Flask, this gives life to our minions, it gains charge per second, and our mana is just going to be pretty much garbage. As for our best in slot, it's basically everything I said except everything I said, physical damage, elemental damage to attacks, just want as high as possible, but I'm still working on the gear altogether. And let me know if you think there is some gear options that could be awesome for this build. So finally, the biggest part, our skill tree. So I'm not going to waste too much of your time, I'm just going to go through this pretty fast. So early on, I recommend actually grabbing these projectile damage nodes all the way down to remorseless instead of taking these dexterity nodes. Then make your way over towards heavy ammunition, and then actually end up going through the rangers or the hunters pathway all the way up till you get pin and run. Now by the time you get pin and run, you should be able to get your first ascendancy, suppressing fire, and then you're going to start pinning enemies like crazy. But then I'd also recommend just grabbing as much projectile damage as possible all around the tree until you can get some level 9 skill gems. Once you get level 9 skill gems, I would respec out some of the damage nodes and go ahead and grab 2 companions. It's a lot of fun, but I actually recommend capturing some beasts with tame beast skill before actually doing this. But before we continue on with the skill tree, it is really important to know that the collapse from the Whirl-Winds damage is actually melee damage. So with that in mind, we didn't want to take as much projectile damage once we start using Whirl-Wind Dance. But we still want projectile damage for twisters, so we're still using Remorseless, we're still using heavy ammunition. But we did want to prioritize skill nodes like Prolonged Assault. Now this one's probably the best for us. It gives attack damage, skill effect duration, keeping our twisters and a Whirlwind run longer, and your buffs also expire on you 10% slower. But again, just a bunch of attack damage around the area, and even this one here with Vile Wounds as well. Give us more damage, again, enemies inflicted with elemental ailments. Since our companion's going to be shocking them and ignite them, that's going to be pretty good for us. But out of all the damage nodes, we really want to grab this one over here, Inspiring Ally. Increasing reductions to companion damage also apply to you. And since these give you 12% companion damage when an 8% when they're in your presence, that's a 20% increased damage just for us. Now we also want to increase area of effects with this one here, Catapults, as well as Primal Sundering, as well as penetrating some elemental reses when we do get those elemental Whirlwinds. Now we do want to talk about this skill right here, Splinters. We're using this because when we're using the Support Splinter, we're going to be trying to break armor. And since we're going to be inflicted with shock and ignite from our companions, it's just going to make it a little bit easier. But we also have to grab some accuracy nodes, so our twisters can take stuff off screen as well. Now, as for second, final, most important node, we're going to be taking this one down here, Lifelong Friends. Because your minions are going to be taken out from time to time, and giving them 50% faster revive speed is going to be awesome, especially grabbing some extra damage down here as well. Then for final node I do want to be talking about is going to be Frenzy Charge support. It's nice all getting some +1 maximum Frenzy Charge, but getting that 50% increased evasion rating when you consume a Frenzy Charge recently is awesome, especially increasing the duration of them. And then also getting another 60% increased evasion rating when you do consume a Frenzy Charge. And this one here, 5% chance to gain Frenzy Charges as maximum, actually feels pretty nice when you're mapping as well. But before we talk about Ascendancy, I do want to talk about this jewel here that we're using. We're using the Emeralds, and the only good things is projectile damage and companions deal 80% increased damage, giving us that damage as well. Everything else, garbage. Now onto our Ascendancy, and the first Ascendancy we're going to be taking is Suppressing Fire, allowing our projectile damage to build up pin. Then after grabbing this Ascendancy, the next Ascendancy we want to grab is going to be Solid Plan, allowing our persistent boss to have 50% less reservations. This is going to allow us to stack up companions along with our auras like our Combat Frenzy, Herald of Thunder, and Wind Dancer as well. Then for our third Ascendancy, I did want to grab right where we want them, pinned enemies cannot perform actions. And then for a fourth one, I'm thinking about actually grabbing Polished Act Gear for gaining 100% evasion rating as an extra ailment threshold. And that's pretty much our whole build. And I just want to say thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, comment, or even subscribing. And I hope you keep looking for the next one. I'll see you next time.